Hi there, and welcome to another edition of Storytime. I'm Chiara Talluto. Today I'm going to read you an excerpt from one of my books called Love's Perfect Surrender. It's a Christian romance about a troubled married couple who lose the us part of their relationship after a failed miscarriage and then a stillbirth until the miraculous birth of their daughter born with a congenital limb deficiency who graces their lives, shaking their core beliefs in hopes of making peace and letting love in. So let me read you a couple pages from the book. Part 1, the middle. In order to understand the middle, one must accept the beginning and trust the end. From Antoinette Liberio's Sticky Notes. Chapter 1, February 2000, Chicago, Illinois. At the rectory of Our Lady Catholic Community Church in Villa Park, Illinois, Antoinette Liberio poured coffee into 2 mugs. She hesitated over the 3rd mug, leaving it empty, her indecision reflecting her mood. Then, putting the coffee pot back on the counter, she slumped into a chair next to Father Robert O'Malley. So, what seems to be the problem? She nervously brushed a strand of sandy brown hair from her face. I'm sorry to have bothered you. Vito and I are... Antoinette's voice squeaked. It's okay, he patted her hand. Father, we aren't so close as we once were. It's like we've fallen off the wagon and we can't get back on. I don't know what else to do. She shivered even though she wore a wool sweater. The priest, portly in his mid-50s, nodded his head and stroked his graying beard. At least he came. That's a first step, dear, he whispered. She and her husband had driven to the church separately after work and had met the pastor at the door. The father had taken them back into the dining room where they could talk privately. They waited for Vito now. 5 minutes earlier, he had excused himself to go to the restroom. Taking a sip of hot coffee, Antoinette looked toward the bay window of the dining room, wondering how the meeting would go. 3 inches of snow blanketed the parking lot of the church grounds, with more still falling. She and Vito had been married for 9 years. Her marriage was crumbling before her eyes. The spark was no longer there. They were childless after years of trying. She thought it had been a good idea to seek counseling with their pastor. Now she was rethinking her decision. Looking around, she noted the interior of the rectory. Pale shades opened against dark beige walls and made the room dull and uninviting. 2 brown leather couches and a small glass coffee table sat to the right of the window. A kitchenette stood on the other side. She and Father Roberts were sitting at a large cherry wood table, and it was smack in the center of the room. It was already after 7 on a Monday evening. She worked as a teacher at the Griffin High School, and it was a 15-minute drive to the church. Tonight, it had almost taken her an hour to get there with the weather. She had spent the whole day in a daze contemplating how to salvage her marriage. Normally, she'd head home to fix dinner, but knew Vito wouldn't be there, so she stayed late at school, grading papers, avoiding a drive to an empty and lonely house. She hadn't eaten since breakfast, but food was the last thing on her mind. Father Robert reassured her with plans of his own of what he was going to discuss with them at this meeting. She was easy to convince, but her husband might not want to be open to marriage intervention, especially if it involved a priest. Vito disliked third parties in his personal affairs. He was very protective of that. As her husband lumbered back through the dark hallway and into the dining area, she watched as he approached them. The lines around his hazel eyes were more pronounced. His chiseled face, haggard. Even his wavy blondish hair had started to turn gray at his temples. With hunched shoulders, he appeared smaller than his 6'1" frame, in khaki corduroys, blue sweater, and brown loafers. He took a seat across from Antoinette and reached for the mug in front of him. What? No coffee for me? He shoved the mug, sliding it across the table toward her. I'm sorry. I'll get it, she said. She rose from the table and reached for the pot and quickly poured liquid into his cup. I didn't know if you wanted any coffee. Vito twisted his hands together. It's freezing out. Then he took a sip. Damn weather. I can't wait till spring. The priest nodded. You're right. Last month wasn't so bad considering these two big storms we had after New Year. But later tonight and into tomorrow morning, he pointed outside, they're predicting another 3 inches on top of what we currently have. Her husband peered at his watch and sighed heavily. Driving home won't be an easy ride either. We haven't had dinner yet, and I still have to shovel our driveway. So maybe we can get on with this meeting or whatever it is. And I'm going to stop right there. Thank you for your time. I hope you check out Love's Perfect Surrender. We'll see you next time on Storytime. I'm Chiara Talluto. Have a great day.